Hey everyone, Avros here, and back with the next event that we have, which is the third boss rush that we've had. This one is a pretty long fight, as you'll see in this video, so I'm going to try and keep this short and just cover off all of the information I can as quickly as possible, and feel free to jump through the video if you need to get to a specific sort of party or boss to see how I'm dealing with those there, but do try and listen to this entire explanation because there is a lot of information here based on how I set up the parties and the 3 parties I use to make sure to make it under that restriction of 4 parties or less. So the first wave, because this is a 4-wave encounter, is the Crust Beetles. They have an orb that will appear at the start of the battle with a 20 count. It is increased by 10 every time you deal bravery damage via a debuff. Again, this can't be anything like a trap, it must be a sap or poison effect. Luckily these guys aren't immune to generic ones, so you can use those. These are the normal Crust Beetles you will have fought in previous encounters before. The major thing obviously to keep in mind with these, as always, you want to completely avoid being broken by them, as they do have the massive follow-up Brave plus HP attacks, and you don't want to get hit by those, as this can be a serious problem for the fight. You can avoid being broken very easily with these guys. Either you need, very high bravery, a lot of battery, or any sort of tanks or dodge abilities. My advice obviously would be bring a dodge tank that can lock the bosses, or, can cover your own units via any sort of cover effect, so stuff like Gladio 8 or Galuf would work for that. The other one you could bring is, something like or someone else who's got very high battery instead. And you also need to deal with the orb, so you need to bring someone with a good sap debuff. Trey is a good example, Ultimecia, Exdeath, any of those should work. For the second wave in this encounter, you have the Guard Scorpions. So these also have an orb. It appears when they get to 79% HP with a 20 count, and this orb is increased by a count of 5 for each ally that you heal for 50% of their health or more. This has to be via an actual healing skill though. You can't use regen for that one, as it will not work. Not much to say about the Guard Scorpions. They do have a electromagnetic charge ability they use at 79% HP when they get their orb, and I had it happening at 49%. I don't recall it happening at any other percentages, just looking at the footage when I was getting this all together. And what happens when they do that is they'll gain bravery up to full 9s, and then will cleanse themselves of all debuffs. They also don't delay themselves when they do that, so you need to make sure that you have some control over the fight to make sure that you can deal with the bravery gain, make sure that you can shave, so really good shaving for the bravery here is required. And of course you do also need healing to deal with the orb, so you need to try and include those either into a team specifically for this wave, or if you can, try and include those into your Team 1 setup, so that way if Team 1 does make it past the Crust Beetles, they can also deal with the Guard Scorpions if required. One last thing to mention about these is they are immune to launch, and I forgot to mention this about the Crust Beetles, but it's true of this encounter as well as every encounter throughout this entire boss wave, but all the bosses are also immune to elemental resist down debuffs. So you can't rely on elemental damage to get your brave numbers up for the shaving against the Guard Scorpions. You actually just need really good bravery shave. Wave 3 is the Celestials, so we fought these before as well. Luckily this phase of the fight doesn't have a orb. They are immune to paralysis, as well as I said before, the elemental resist down. So these bosses, being similar to everyone else that we fought before when these Celestials come up, are going to hit you with a lot of single target HP attacks very frequently, and if they get enough turns, they will go into their sort of charge stance. They sort of like recoil back and charge up their next attack. This will gain them a lot of bravery as well as some generic buffs, making them much harder to kill, so you want to try and avoid that if you can. My advice for dealing with this wave is obviously to use delay and try and delay them as much as possible and deal a lot of damage to them as quickly as possible while delaying. Bravery shave is also important, so units like Aranea and Cloud, who are a couple of good examples for sort of bravery shaving these ones, is very useful. Or you could also use any units with instant break, so something like Trey using his Grand Delta or Ramza via Shout would also work very well for this wave. And then the 4th wave is a brand new boss, one that I don't think we fought before. I'm fairly certain this one is brand new. These are the Needle Snakes. So these Needle Snakes come back into this encounter and bring an orb, so after the Celestials is sort of a break from the Lufania orbs, we actually have one here on the Needle Snakes. These ones will start with their orb at the very beginning of the wave with a 20 count, and the orb is increased by a +2 count every turn ending with them having at least 2 debuffs. That being said, these bosses are really annoying, and I hope they don't come back because this mechanic is just pain in the ass to deal with. So they'll get a message that comes up early on in the fight that says, dangerous with 4 or more debuffs. So this is something that you have to take seriously in this encounter, as during the fight they will use an ability called Shed, and if they have 4 or more debuffs, this upgrades to Shed Plus. So Shed gives the snake increased Brave, basically a Brave battery, and Shed Plus will give it the Bravery battery, removes all debuffs including framed debuffs, and raises their attack, defense, speed, max Brave, and int Brave, making them much harder to deal with. So if this wasn't painful enough already, seeing as you do need those 2 debuffs on them as well, they also at 79%, 49%, and 19% HP will grant themselves 3 stacks of a framed buff called Needles. This will have like a little needle icon next to their buff list, which lets them quickly recover from break and gain bravery immediately after being broken. It seems to be about 49,999 bravery each time you break them, and what the breaking them actually does is removes 1 stack of this 3 stacks of the Needles buff. So what you actually need to do is you need to remove all 3 stacks of these needles, because the needle effect does give them a lot of stacking benefits that increases for each number of stacks they've got. So at 1 stack they will have increased attack, defense, and maximum bravery. At 2 stacks they have everything from the 1 stack obviously, but also a HP poison aura, so every time you take your turn you will be taking HP damage, and that's from both if they both have the needle stack up, so this can add up very quickly. And at 3 stacks they have everything from the 1 and 2 stacks, and then also a aura that gives them minus 50% HP damage taken. So you need to break those needles quickly, otherwise you won't be able to deal with these bosses in the turn counts you've got, seeing this is a boss rush, 50 turns per party. And yeah, you really need someone that does high bravery damage, instant break, something like that, to deal with these needles so you can get the spines off them as quickly as you can. They are also weak to ice damage, so someone who does ice like Onion Knight or Celes is a great example of just getting that bravery damage up higher to deal with those spines. Alright, so that's everything there is to say about the 4 waves of bosses here. So now we can finally talk about the parties I have set up here. So you would have seen some of these parties fighting in the course of this description already. So we'll start with party 1, as they're probably the one that's still on screen right now. So party 1 is Cecil, Gladio, and Trey. So this party was designed to go as far as I can make them from the first wave through, and I actually planned for them to get through the second wave if possible. That's why we've got Cecil on board as the healer, and they did actually make it all the way through to the start of wave 3. So what this party has going for it, and sort of the overall roles they're trying to fill, obviously we've got Gladio there, he's going to tank, he's got the cover abilities as well as the dodge, so he can dodge the Crust Beetles to deal with their big attacks. He's doing off-turn DPS via his LD buff, and bravery damage taken reduction to again help with the Crust Beetles and try and avoid that break, followed by HP attack. Cecil, obviously we've got him along as a healer, so that helps to deal with the second orb requirement wave 2, as well as he's a battery, a lot of bravery and HP damage up buffs. He's got his burst phase to lengthen out the 50 turns in the first party, and he also does pretty decent DPS. And the last member of party 1 is Trey. He's along to deal with the wave 1 orb. He's also providing synergy stats to the entire party, as he's one of the boosted units, so if he's in a party he provides that synergy bonus to everybody. And then he's also here to do a lot of DPS, off-turn damage via his like raining arrows and firewall, as well as instant break where required. One thing to keep in mind, seeing as he did make it through to wave 2 with this party, is that his debuffs become less effective against the guard scorpions, so you don't want to abuse the raining arrows too much on the first wave, as you need to save it for the second one to keep that off-turn damage high. The summon I used for this party was Ramuh, as this provided them with more maximum bravery, plus level 40 summon dealing damage was very helpful just to sort of push through the early parts of this fight. Alright, party 2 was Ramza, Aranea, and Arciela. So this party was used to deal with wave 3 and then got into early wave 4. Pretty standard DPS party here, you know, got a high damage dealer and a couple of supports to deal with any weaknesses they might have. So obviously the damage dealer in this case is Aranea. She puts in a lot of work between her new LD buff, giving her, you know, constant breaks to push back the Celestials, as well as, you know, Vital Crusher to increase everyone's damage. And yeah, the Orbless bosses in wave 3 being able to just be dealt with by any damage dealer was a perfect opportunity for Arciela to shine here. Sorry, not Arciela, Aranea to shine there. Arciela also very helpful in this fight. HP damage disable is massive help against the Celestials, so wasn't wrong to say her before as shining in this fight, but wasn't who I meant at the time. Too many A names in this party, making myself a bit confused there. And Ramza gets all of his usual jobs. You know, he's here to do his battery, his buffs. He's an aura bot, he delays, he launches, he's got a great burst phase, he gives HP and bravery damage boost after his burst. Just fills all those roles. Also does a little bit of healing where required. I don't think I needed him for too much healing in this one, so still worth calling out that he does do some healing as well. Aranea we've covered. Vital Crusher being a massive help here, is increasing that damage for everybody via making it all critical. And yeah, Arciela, again, more battery, some auras, HP attack disable, and her LD weapon ability giving her some bravery clamping, so preventing the enemies from gaining brave, which was also very useful against the Celestials. And for summons for this party, as they did make it early into wave 4, I did bring brothers to keep their maximum bravery up as high as possible. The third party I did use, and this is the last party I had to, was the cleanup crew. So they only had to deal with the needle snakes. So for this party we brought along Celes for all of her tankiness, off-turn damage from Magitech Ice Block. She's also an enchanter, so giving everyone ice damage for anything that wasn't already elemental, which was very handy for dealing with the snakes and dealing that high bravery damage. And she also brings 2 debuffs just straight up via Magitech Ice Block and Lock, so that kept the orb under control immediately just on her own. For the second party member, we brought along Y'shtola. She's here to do a lot of battery and to provide the synergy stats as well as a burst phase to lengthen out the turn count. She does pretty decent AoE damage. She's also here to heal. One thing to keep in mind though is you need to be careful about your debuff use in this fight. Again, you don't want to hit that 4 debuffs, and if you bring the party I brought, so Celes provides 2. Y'shtola, if she uses Stone Plus, can do Death Down, which can, get you to 3 debuffs, and then third party member I brought was Jack, actually getting him into a party instead of just as a call ability, because that LD debuff is very good. And also he does very high damage as well as follow-up attacks, so that's very useful for something in like this encounter where you need to just hit hard and hit fast. The thing being is that to use his LD debuff, that's another debuff slot taken. So if you use Celes's LD to get Lock and Magitech Ice Block up, Y'shtola uses Stone, and then Jack uses his LD, you've hit 4 debuffs and they're going to Shed Plus and become a massive pain in the ass. So just be careful what your debuff usage if you bring the same party, because it's something you need to keep in mind. Lastly, summon for this party, I did bring along Diabolos. He's got a big bravery increase, which is relevant for those units because Celes wants high in bravery as she needs it for Magitech Ice Block. Y'shtola's in bravery affects some of her abilities like Medicate and other things like that to make sure that she's batterying a lot, and Jack having a higher in brave helps with his follow-up attacks. So that covers off all 4 of the bosses, the parties I brought, the sort of team making thought process behind what I was trying to do. So that should hopefully help you if you've watched through all of this. I really appreciate it. It is a lot of information to take in. This has been a long description of everything to do with this fight. This fight is going to go on for much longer past my description, a bit under 3/4 of an hour for this entire encounter. So if you do watch the whole entire video, I appreciate that. It's very helpful for me. Otherwise, this description and the description down below, and I'm going to put a written version if I can make it fit. It's a lot of info to put in there, obviously with the character count on YouTube. So yeah, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or you need any assistance with this one, definitely ask down below and I'll do my best to help. This is a pretty rough fight, so thank you for watching.
戦わないわけにはいかないようだな。
常世の闇よ、そこまでです。おしまいにします。
魂を引き出す。はあ、虚空を貫け。
いただくよ。まだまだ。それじゃ昇天しな。終わり。まだまだ。
僕に任せろ。
しまいにしてあげるよ。暗いな。
やっちゃうぞ。魂を引き出す。はあ、虚空を
貫け。いただくよ。
トリプルプレイ。
まだまだ。いただくよ。
逃がさない。僕は臆病者だ。それでも迷いはしない。
我が元へ集いたまえ。暗い 救済の光よ消し飛んで
侮るな。
さあおしまいにしてあげるよ。
しざしだよ。
我が元へ集いたまえ。
それじゃ昇天しなう。
終わり。しざしだよ。魂を引き出す。はあ。虚空を貫け。
まだまだ
いただくよ。
この力で
さあおしまいにしてあげるよ。暗いな。
トリプルプライ
まだまだ
いただくよ。
救済の光よ消し飛んで
しざしだよ。
じゃあね。
しざしだよ。
我が元へ集いたまえ。
魂を引き出す。はあ。虚空を
さあおしまいにしてあげるよ。
しざしだよ。
常世の闇よそこまでです。
あーとりゃ侮るな。串刺しだよ。
おしまいにします。
月の導きを頼んだ。
それじゃ昇天しなう。
さあ行くよ。遅いね。痛いよ。おしまい。
救済の光を消し飛んで。それじゃ昇天しなう。終わり。私がみんなを守る番だ。希望は捨てない。ここで終わりだ。チキケリーってね。逃がさない。聖なる輝きよ。一瞬だよ。さあ行くよ。遅いね。痛いよ。おしまい。一瞬だよ。油断したわね。 なる輝きを。油断したわね。蹴りをつけるわ。すべてのエーテルよ、ここに集え。解き放たん。これで諦めて。頼りにしてるわね。希望は少ない。これで終わりだ。一瞬だよ。油断したわね。逃がさない。聖なる輝きを。一瞬だよ。油断したわね。
行くぞ。チリケリーってね。
希望は捨てない。これで終わりだ。逃がさない。聖なる輝きを。
油断した。
観念なさい。
一瞬だよ。
勝てる。油断したわね。
やっちゃうぞ。